Welcome back, folks, to WrestleRant. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and today we're breaking down the 1991 installment of WWE Survivor Series as seen on the WWE Network. Now, this pay-per-view is best known, and as I included in an article over the weekend for Bleacher Report, best known for being one of the worst installments in Survivor Series history. And after watching it firsthand, I can definitely attest to that. Not a great show at all. The only real good part about this show was the opener, the 4-on-4 traditional Elimination Survivor Series tag team match, pitting Ric Flair, the Mountie, Ted DiBiase, and the Warlord against Roddy Piper, Bret Hart, Virgil, and Davey Boy Smith. Pretty good match, well wrestled. Ric Flair had just come into WWE right before this. I think that's September with the World Heavyweight Championship, the WCW World Heavyweight Championship, which they blurred out at every turn, which was, it was a great storyline, something that had never been before done in WWE, but I'm surprised they botched it. The match at WrestleMania should have been for the real World Championship, Ric Flair versus Hulk Hogan. They couldn't do the two belts thing because they had to give that belt back to WCW at some point, and Ric Flair would win the Royal Rumble and become the new WWF champion after it was vacated, blah, 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 blah. That's another rant for another day. I'm just surprised they didn't do that match at WrestleMania. I know the reasons why, but that match really should have happened. Anyway, and we got a great feud out of it, too, between Savage and Flair, so it wasn't all bad. We did get an awful main event that year between Hogan and Sid Justice, Psycho Sid, whoever the hell he was at that point. Anyway, getting back to this match. It was good. It was really the only good match on this entire show, which is saying something, because the rest of the show sucked, or the rest of the matches were not good at all. But yeah, I thought it was good. Ric Flair was the sole survivor. I thought the finish sucked. The match was really good. The finish saw pretty much everyone involved in the ring, and I couldn't even tell you who was in the ring. It was at least 5 or 6 people. They were all eliminated. They were all disqualified, making Ric Flair the sole survivor. So it was really rushed. For a match that got 22 minutes, the second longest match in the entire show, I was surprised they waited until the end to get everyone eliminated at once to have Ric Flair become the sole survivor. I thought that was kind of weak and a little stupid. But the match itself was good, and really the saving grace of this show. I say saving grace as not to mean that this show was saved because of this match. The show still sucked regardless, and the finish was kind of bad. Ric Flair being the sole survivor was great, but the way it was done the way that it was executed wasn't too clever. It was kind of dumb. But it was really the only bright spot in this entire show. The rest of it was really not that good. So after that, we had Sergeant Slaughter, Jim Duggan, the Texas Tornado, and Tito Santana defeating the 4-man duo of Cole Mustafa, however you pronounce that, the Berserker, Skinner, and Hercules. Awful match. The match really, really sucked. Thank God Jim Duggan's team clean sweep. They won the match, and it was over in 14 minutes. But the match really was not good at all. I'm not going to go into any specifics why, but just was not a good match. If you watch this pay-per-view, skip over this match. Skip over the entire Final 4 matches, only watch the opener. But this match was really not great at all. Just people on the other team I didn't care about. Skinner, the Berserker, Mustafa, Hercules was really good, but everyone else on that team sucked, and thank God it was a clean sweep. So after that, for the WWF Championship, the first ever singles match ever in the history of Survivor Series, the first 4 shows were all tag team matches, so it was historic in that respect. And also for the fact that Undertaker won his first WWE Championship in this matchup, but the match was no good. It was Undertaker challenging for the gold against Hulk Hogan. Taker was undefeated, but the match sucked, as you can really obviously tell. Taker, as great of a worker as he is, as legendary as he is, his matches from the second part of his career, in my opinion, were far superior to anything that he did in the 90s, because the matches that he had with people were just not great at all. This being a prime example. Hulk Hogan could be carried to a great match. Not always carried, but if the story was right, and the story here was okay, but if he had the right opponent, like with a guy like Warrior, who was also not a great worker either, they captured lightning in a bottle at WrestleMania 6 and had an amazing match because of just the atmosphere, everything that went into it, the unpredictability. Taker had just debuted. He was in this mythical figure. People were buying into his shtick. He was undefeated. He had a great build-up. He won the belt here, but with all the controversy and everything else that happened, if the match didn't happen, Hulk Hogan probably would not have been hurt. He talked about it in his book, and I just remember watching this match and thinking about what he wrote about in his book, the 2009 autobiography, Taker had delivered the tombstone to Hogan, but he was so slippery or he was sweaty or whatever that he slipped, and he actually pretty much legitimately delivered a tombstone, whereas of course, if you've seen the movie before, he hits the tombstone, but he lands on his knee, so the person taking the move doesn't really get hurt at all. Their neck really never touches the mat. In this case, it did, but what made it even worse was that when he delivered the tombstone and his head really did crash into the mat, severely hurting his neck, which was a shoot when Hogan was taken out in the stretcher afterwards. That was real. And they had the rematch anyway 2 days later, which was so fucking stupid. But when he delivered the tombstone, his neck hit the mat, but it also hit the chair because Taker had delivered it on a chair, and it really fucked up Hogan's neck. And they did the rematch 2 days later at Tuesday in Texas because of the controversy surrounding Paul Bearer. And that match ended in controversy too, setting up the 92 Royal Rumble for the vacated WWF Championship. So just a lot of clusterfuck finishes. The match was no good. These guys had zero chemistry. I'm surprised they ended up doing it again 12 years later at Judgment Day 02. That match wasn't great either. But it was, I think, probably far superior to this match, which was not great at all. So it was cool to see Taker win the belt, albeit for 2 days. It was a cool moment, but the match itself was awful. So after that, we had the Nasty Boys and the Beverly Brothers taking on the Rockers and the Bushwhackers in a 4-on-4 Survivor Series elimination match. So not like the ones from a couple years prior where we had like 5 teams on one team and 5 on the other. It was just 2 tag teams versus 2 tag teams. Pretty much a basic 8-man tag team match where it was elimination, but the teams were paired together. But anyway, fine match, really nothing notable about it whatsoever. Very, very mediocre. The only real noteworthy thing about this match was how they teased the breakup between the Rockers, who would split in January of the following year. Other than that, this match was very forgettable. And we got to the main event, the Legion of Doom and Big Boss Man taking on the Natural Disasters and IRS. Again, fine match, nothing of note. Legion of Doom were the sole survivors. Oh, and by the way, the Nasty Brothers and Blake Beverly were the sole survivors in the previous match, which was weird. You would think it was not not beat one team and they're gone. It was every man for himself. I got to correct myself there for the previous match, which was weird. They had one half of the tag team and just Blake Beverly, not the other Beverly brother, and then both the Nasty Boys. So that was kind of weird. But anyway, getting back to the main event. Fine main event. I just didn't really see why it was necessary or why it felt like it was a main event. It didn't feel like a main event match at all. It was very, very mediocre. Legion of Doom were over. They picked up the win. Woohoo. That's it. It was 3-on-3. It wasn't 4-on-4, so that was what made it even weirder. So, yeah, an okay match. It wasn't terrible, but it didn't really feel like a main event match at all. It wasn't a great match to begin with, but to have it in the main event, it was even more questionable. So although the match sucked, I probably would have put Taker and Hogan in there. And I know it would have ended the night with a heel title win, but who cares? It was a big win for Taker, like I said before, albeit for 2 days. But it would have made for a better, maybe not. I really have no idea. I mean, having the baby faces going over in the main event was fine, and the match sucked anyway between Taker and Hogan, but at least led to controversy, led to a big night 2 days later on Tuesday in Texas with the title change again when Hogan won it back and whatever. So, yeah, I probably would have put the title match, although it wasn't great at all. It was a moment, and it left people wondering what was going to happen next between Hogan and Taker. So I probably, although the match wasn't great, probably would have put that in the main event over the 3-on-3 elimination tag team match. So on the whole, this show was just not good. The opener was good. The finish of the opener wasn't really that great. But the match itself was pretty good. Everything else was very forgettable or very mediocre. The 3 elimination tag team matches, other than the main event, other than the opener, were very mediocre. And then the title match was very poorly wrestled, other than Taker winning his first title, his first WWF championship. So do not watch this show. I would not recommend it whatsoever. I thought 92 wasn't really that much better, but it was a significant improvement over this one. You could probably I think it's safe to say call this show the worst Survivor Series of all time, like I said in my Bleacher Report article over the weekend. I put a few other Survivor Series shows as the worst of all time. You can check out the article for yourself to see what other events I listed. But this one, if it's not the worst, it's definitely up there. This show really had very little to offer other than the opener, which even had a bad finish in of itself. So that is my review of Survivor Series 1991. Thank you for tuning in, as always. You can check me out on Twitter. Follow me there at WrestleRant, on Facebook at facebook.com/graham.gsm.matthews. Check out the website at nextairwrestling.net. And last but not least, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. All support is greatly appreciated. So going up today was this review, my review of Survivor Series 1989. And also be sure to check out my review of Survivor Series 1992. So in the meantime and in between time, guys, have a great rest of your Tuesday. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch you folks down the road.